right, guys, so give it up for Andreas Fischer, please. Hello, good evening. So, okay, so if this hasn't reached outside, I think we're going to get started with the next talk. So, you may know me as the guy who walks around during the talks and tells everyone to shut up because it was a little loud. It was getting a little loud. So yeah, like Martha said, it would be great if you could keep it down a little bit. And if you get too bored, like that's no problem at all. Just go outside, smoke a cigarette, have a beer, have a chat. So as some of you may know, I'm going to start with a preliminary introduction. So thanks for inviting me, but he kind of had to because I co-founded the event with him a couple of years ago when we got started. So it's kind of like I passed along the torch to him. Yeah, like about a year and a half ago, I would say, or maybe 2 years ago, for a reason I'm going to get into, but it's great to be back and it's great to see you're all doing well and everyone is here and kind of like, you know, just really, we're having a packed space here and everyone's excited to come and you meet old friends and you meet new friends and that's kind of what it's about, so this is really appreciated, so thank you for your attention. So yeah, let's get started. So this was supposed to be an animated GIF. The keynote didn't play nice with that. So here are a couple of alternative titles that I had devised for this talk, and I finally decided on the one you just saw. But this is just like so that you can, you know, some of them I stole, some of them are my own creation, but just so you can kind of get an idea of what's going to go down tonight. So these are just some images to set the mood. This is not my work. I took it off the internet. I thought just like I'm going to show you a little something to see, you know, yeah, just to set the tone of what I'm going to talk about later. I'm going to talk a little bit about my work. I'm a visual artist based here in Berlin. I'm going to talk a little bit about my work. This looks more sophisticated, I would say. This is like classy, you know, lots of like things being packed, and this is kind of, yeah, this is kind of what you have to start your talk with. If you're an individual, if you're not a big studio or not well known, you have to start your talk with showing the physical space that you operate in, because you just could be someone living in your mother's basement. So this is what the reality may look like, but you kind of have to show your studio. So this is pretty good. Yeah, so you have to show people that you're serious and that you invest time and money in a physical space, and yeah, you're taking your work seriously. So this is actually the workshop of my old studio. This is the CNC mill on the side. We're going to get to that later. There's a nice pink corner that I painted because it's like a workshop and it's like a very, very masculine space. So it's kind of, I thought it could use a little color, a little dash of color. It's another close-up. It's a chair, some wood. This is me in the space, so that you know that I'm not lying. So yeah, so I'm standing on a ladder up on like with some art, and this is probably more what reality looks like for most of my work, but like it's nice to think that it looks like this sometimes as well. So very serious, committed to my work. I'm going to talk about a couple of things tonight, not only my work, but just a general idea of what might happen, and this is kind of my version of my vision of the future, and kind of. So what happened about 1.5 years ago is that my wife and I had a child, and I didn't want to show any pictures of the actual birth, so this is kind of a stand-in for that, and this is what it looked like after. So when you have a child, and I'm sure many of you who have children, that's the point in your life where you reflect on what you've achieved and what you're doing and kind of what's really going on, and of course you have to think about the future. And you know, maybe you're an artist, you're a creative, you're living in Berlin, maybe you live in a small apartment in Lichtenberg, And maybe you kind of, maybe think that's not the right environment for your child, or you just, you get a little, you think about these things more than usual, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I did. And there are many visions of the future that people may have. So this is kind of like, for me, it depends on like this very dystopian and dark ideas, and also very, very happy ideas about the future. That kind of, they coincide, and they depend on my personal mood and on how much coffee I had that morning. And so that, like, as many of you experience and many of you know, the times are changing, and they're changing very rapidly, ever more rapidly. So these are things, so you're like, this is what a phone looked like, this is what a computer looked like. Anyone, this is a travel agent. Anyone remember travel agents? This is Blockbuster Video. These are signs, old signs of stores being stored. So this is kind of like, yeah, like I said, like the future's coming, it's coming fast, and it's evolving at an ever increasing rate, alarmingly. And so there are a few trends, there are a few trends and hypes and things that people associate with the future. One of them is 3D printing. So this is what it looks like when a 3D printer doesn't work, or many models that broke and that you didn't do right. And if you and there's this kind of hype that surrounds these new technologies, and it's kind of like the people expect sort of a salvation from technology, and it's kind of, but they're also afraid of it. You're not going to know what's going to happen. And this is another recent trend. This is a Bitcoin mining rig or a Litecoin mining rig. So you have you have a couple of GPUs stacked, and you're making money. You're making cryptocurrency with that. And this is also a new development, been hyped very much. But then you look at the price of Bitcoin from last year. Like if you look at the main index of Bitcoin, and it's been kind of like, people have been speculating a lot, so you don't know what's going to happen. So this is like this uncertainty that's been always been there. The world has always been falling apart. So at every turn of every century, people have kind of had this ideas of collapse, and it's ever kind of like what could happen to society in the next few years. And so this is kind of just going to leave that quote up there, maybe long enough for you to read it. I'm not going to read it out loud. Mike Pondsmith, if you don't know him, he's a video game designer. There's other more dystopian ideas of the future. And also retro future, because this is what people thought the future looked like in the past. More quotes. This is a little small. This is a quote by FX Twin. I think you can read the quote itself. And I think he's like FX Twin, or Richard, as I call him affectionately. I think he's very kind of in tune, and aside his music, kind of he's very, very right with what he's saying. It's kind of like you're not physically connected to the machine, but you're very, very close to it. And I think also your thinking is influenced by it. So there's something that I noticed in the last few years, that usually you have a web browser open with a couple of tabs, maybe 10. Or something at least, and you have your email and all these things on your phone, and it's kind of like I think this kind of you're essentially training your brain to have a really, really short attention span. And I think this is happening to me, and I see it happening to other people, and I think this is something that you just need to be aware of, kind of like the concept of neuroplasticity, that your brain is like a muscle. You can mold it, and you can train it, and you can train it in a certain way, and the brain wants something. Like it wants like instant feedback. It wants these images that I picked off of Tumblr. It wants these all day. Like that's instant gratification. This is what's happening. So I guess this is just something that you should be aware of. And I'm going to, just like a few more images about the future that I found to be kind of like in the common, like in the common zeitgeist when you look at Tumblr, like things that are just coming up again. I'm just going to leave these uncommented. And I think this is really the idea where it's heading. So if you look at computers, if you look at Moore's law, it's kind of the law of the acceleration of the progress of the hardware and the infrastructure, and everything is like computer hardware. Everything is getting faster at an exponential rate. And so Ray Kurzweil, who's an American inventor. He kind of has this vision of the future that we're all going to be kind of one day that there's going to be an artificial intelligence that's going to be smarter than humans, and then you're going to be able to upload your mind to the cloud. I think this is a little far-fetched, and I think it's kind of somewhat of an alternative techie religion that he kind of invented for himself. So it's kind of like I think it's just a form, ultimately it's just a form of spirituality, but this is something that people think about. And this is how that might look like. Of course, you have to have the drones, tiny chips, quantum computing, Google Glass, or something similar. More images about the future. And I think there's a quote by the science fiction writer William Gibson. The future is already here, and it's only unevenly distributed. And I also think that he's very, very right about that. So you can live in a country where you can have a drone, but you don't, or in a part of a country, a part of the world where you can have a drone, and you cannot have access to running water, to fresh water. And I think this is kind of, yeah, just a few impressions. I'm gonna ramble on. Then here's the giant phones, and. Yeah, then you have virtual reality also, of course, with the Oculus Rift becoming a bigger part of the future and what might happen, and kind of. And I think that image on the left, that sums it up very well. So you're having a nice latte, mochaccino, something, at Starbucks, and you're sitting outside a cafe, and you have your VR headset on, and you're looking at some otaku hentai things or whatever. I don't know. Or you have, yeah. So it's just more visions about the future. And like I said, like this is personally, as you can maybe tell, I thoroughly enjoy looking at images like that and fantasizing about the future. But it's kind of like it's an ambivalent thing. It's an ambivalent thing. But yeah, let's get back to the present. So let's get back to the present. I'm going to talk about a few topics that maybe concern a few of you as well, working in the creative industry. Industry is the right term for it. And I count myself in with that, like creative industry, Kulturindustrie, beautiful word. So globalization. If I wanted to like show someone, if I wanted to, explain the world globalization to someone from, let's say, the Middle Ages, I would probably show them this picture. And I took this picture in a market outside of Bucharest called the Dragon Mart. And this is, so everything is, obviously made in China. This is what it looks like inside. And it's like being taken to Shenzhen or some other like unknown multi-million Chinese city, is where you have all the vendors. You have mainly Chinese people and some Romanians mixed in between. But this is, so that would be my idea of the future that we're living right now. And so I'm going to talk a little bit now, like for the last 10 years, I've heard that, like you're working at a post-production or an animation studio, and then you're like, yeah, well, why don't we just send it to India, or, and this is not, I'm not saying this in a demeaning way, these people are doing amazing work, and this is not meant to, I don't want to talk down on anyone. So you're, outsourcing. So people think, like for years I've been told that, but your jobs are gonna go away, and then everything's gonna be done in the Philippines or something. But so kind of, I had to experiment with that myself, but in my practice as an artist. So this is a picture of a town called Dafen, which is also mainland China, where most of the oil paintings that are being made or painted in the world come from. So it's like a factory, but for oil painting made by people. And you can commission work there, and you can have them do a picture of your dog, This is a 3D rendering that I made that was more like, it was not about that image in itself, but it was more, I was more interested in the reproduction. So I had them do a painting of my 3D rendering, just kind of to, like as a test image, if you will, or kind of like, if you want to call this an artwork, I would consider it maybe a gesture. So, and then with another try at outsourcing. So there's this company called Odesk, and it's a platform for freelancers all around the world, and you can hire people, and they can do things for you remotely. And you can commission graphic design work, and you can hire a programmer and have them do your website. And I thought, I was working on my new portfolio, and I wanted a new website. And I thought, hey, it would be nice to get a logo. So, and I have to be honest about this. I was kind of going for this. I kind of wanted this secretly. I wanted to produce this, so it's kind of a setup because I had my initial bid, and I hired 10 different people to do the same thing, and I told them my favorite color is purple. And that's what people came up with. So they were doing a logo with my initials, and usually some purple, maybe some other orange in there, some colors. I didn't request some 3D. I told them I like 3D. Also a little bit of 3D. Yeah, so this was kind of like, that was just like, just some trial and error, like, maybe something comes out of it. So this is, and I'm not just saying this is nothing you don't need to be worried about, but I think it's just like, as with everything, you need to be very specific about your briefs, and you also need some budget. So if you don't have a budget, this is what you're getting. But, so these are my attempts at outsourcing myself and my work, and okay. This is another topic that I want to talk about, the headline disappeared. So the headline for this is automatization. So this is the other thing to fear, I think, I think we're really on the cusp right now where this is starting to happen. So there was a paper that was published in 2012 that stated, like a scientific paper that stated, and I can look it up for you if you want, that stated that 47% of jobs in the US could potentially be automated. That means be either done by physical robots or done by bots or software. And this is also another, I think, a big topic for what I'm thinking about, and what everyone is thinking about, is kind of what is going to happen when the software does my job, or where the software, makes my job so much more, like gives me so much more leverage that I'm not needed anymore, or 9 out of 10 or maybe 8 out of 10 people aren't needed anymore. So then I think ultimately you need to come up with the scheme for the redistribution of wealth, and then also kind of with a lot of training and a lot of schooling for people to have something to do. Because I'm not saying I'm against this. It's like I don't think you can be against progress, or it's not going to work. Like you can be the Unabomber and live in the forest for a few years and try not to blow anyone up. But I think we can't collectively go back to living in a cage. So it's kind of like you don't really have a choice. That's just my personal opinion. We can discuss that later after a few beers. So this is a logo generator. So this is the first attempt at automatization. So I was like, okay, I took the same thing, and yeah. So this is a website where you can generate a logo, and I think this is kind of like you still like the design. Everything that requires a lot of cognitive effort is you're still gonna be in the green for a good while. So like you can pat yourself on the back. And so this is what most of our society and what mostly everything comes down to in the end is the money. So I'm gonna start talking about my three-pronged approach that I mentioned, kind of referenced in the title. dividing between my artwork, between art commissions, and just straight up art direction commercial work. So this is just going to show you a few things in the beginning, just from exhibitions, from work in the past, from the last few years. I'm just going to leave that uncommented. So one topic that's kind of the red line, or what keeps my work together, or kind of a general principle that I've been interested in for a long time, and which doesn't cease to fascinate me, is generative systems. And that means making work that is not about a singular work. It's about creating a system that creates a theoretically endless series of work. So this is a series called Schwarm, or Swarm in English, and this is a software program that I wrote that generates these images. And like I said, like these are 3 images that were then picked from that endless series that were generated and then exhibited. So it's kind of, this is something that's always kind of in fine art. You always have to, or it's very hard to show the multiplicity, or it's very hard to show everything. And also most of the output of the system doesn't necessarily look that good. So you have to curate yourself. You have to see what works for you, what composition works well, and then you end up with a series like that. So these are just procedural paintings or procedural drawings, so that are based on photographs that I took and then are then analyzed by that software, and it's just a particle system that over time, usually over about a day or half a day, creates one of these images. And this is kind of coming back to what I was talking about before, is just what does this do for the artwork? It's kind of like if you remove that one step from yourself. So if you have an artificial entity that's between you and the work. So you're not working as an agent yourself with a pencil on paper. You have kind of this layer of abstraction that creates these images. People are getting a little loud in the back. Maybe I'm boring someone. I don't know. So this is another series. This is called Brute Force Method, and this was inspired by, or the title is inspired at least by cryptography and computer science, where the brute force method is actually, it's you're trying to crack a code, and you're trying to crack it with any combination possible. So you just try all the numbers. You start with 0, 0, 0, 1, and you go up to until you hit the code, or you just try a sequence of numbers of codes until you hit the right spot. And this is also what the software essentially does. So these are some digital sculptures that are being rearranged by software on a canvas, kind of creating every permutation. Obviously, not every permutation possible. But I generated around 500 images, and then I had the idea that it would be good to actually show everything instead of picking it yourself. And so instead of picking 5 images from that series, I put all of them on my website, and then I would track with analytics. I would track what people would click on the most, and what people clicked on the most, that was what ended up getting produced and getting put into that exhibition. So what you can see here is this is a computer running the software, and it shows the images being generated. So this is the whole series being made, and these are the ones that people picked. Just to show a few from that series, to give you an idea of the variation that it creates. And this, of course, this isn't totally random. This is this is defined by parameters that I set. This is a framework. This is kind of There's a lot of thought and you know, that went into why I'm doing this and kind of where these shapes come from. It's just like then you let this loose and then you let it create all those permutations. All right. Full screen one. So this is another project that I want to talk about. So 2 years ago, I got invited by the Winston-Salem Symphony Orchestra and the SICA. This is the SICA. This is the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art. This is in North Carolina in the U.S. And they invited me to come over and do a performance, do a generative, like a live performance with the orchestra, and also have like a small exhibition at that museum. And so before I came over, they told me that there was a tree. There was a tree, like this is like surrounded by this beautiful forest, and they had told me that there was a tree that had fallen in the like right in front of the museum. And since they also wanted to commission some sculptures, they asked me if they should salvage some of the wood for me, and I said, well, of course, by any means. So, you know, hang it up to dry for me, and I'll come and pick it up and see what I can do when I get there. And so, to give you some context, so this is, of course, if you go to the U.S. when you're European or when you're German, you have to, you know, you have to take in a little bit of the ambiance, you know, and go to Walmart. And yeah, so this is do some shopping, you know, like with all the high culture and the symphony orchestra in between, you know, you have to find the basic necessities of daily life, driving around in your car. Some shotguns. This is what I found most fascinating. Most fascinating. These are camouflage hunting. This is camouflage hunting gear, but it's for girls. So it has this pink trim on it. And I decided it was super neat. Didn't pick it up. Also went to a shooting range. Yeah. So this was the hall where the symphony orchestra played, and this was kind of like the rehearsal, and you can see the projection of the software in the back, which is also based on that generative system that I showed earlier, but it's just like a live version of it, kind of, you know, a more agile version of it that I programmed. Here's me enjoying a Dr. Pepper before it actually started. So I was there controlling the software to the music, so it was not just on autopilot running. I would be there and perform, and I had a pen tablet and an output. And I'm not going to show you any video because like the documentation, it's terrible, so you're just going to have to imagine this. Also, we don't have time. But getting back to that tree, that fell outside of the museum, and so I thought it would be a nice idea if I could take that wood and kind of engrave, like, and show, like, make an artifact that shows where the wood came from, out of the wood that was salvaged. So I took a field recording. I just put my MacBook there, and I did a little audio, like an ambient recording of the sounds of the forest and the grass and these things, and just exactly where, in the spot where that tree stood. And then I took, with the software that I wrote, that's actually something that came from another project a while back that I collaborated with a good friend of mine on, Ben Maus. And we wrote a software that analyzes the audio data and turns it into a height field. Basically, you have a range of the different frequencies, you have your bass and your midtones and your high and your overtones, and these get mapped onto a three-dimensional mesh. So this is a way you can, just to visualize the sound. And so this is the output from that script, from that program, in a 3D program. And this is the wood that they salvaged. And I wanted to show this project a little bit because we spend so much of our life in front of a computer. And I'm not saying, I like it. I do it a lot, and I don't have a problem with it. But it's kind of like you're limiting your senses. You're limiting your senses a lot when you're sitting in front of a computer. So you're actually, I mean, you have your eyes and you have your, you know, sometimes you even talk to someone. You have your eyes, but you're kind of limiting yourself to your fingertips and your auditory senses. But like sensory, this is a deprivation in the end. And this is something that you notice when you start working again with something that's not digital, that's actual material, and this is like physical material that has physical properties. And if you do something wrong and you fuck it up, you have to do it again. And you kind of, you can just take that in, and there's just like the sensory experience of that is so much richer than what you can have right now on a computer. And this is like, I'm not hating on it, you know, like this is, it's fair game, and it has its own aesthetics, and it has its own freedoms and advantages. It's just, it's good to do something different every once in a while. And I then took that data, I then took that 3D model, and there was, luckily there were some guys that were helping me out with that, with the CNC milling. So this is a CNC milling machine, for those of you who don't know that. You just input a 3D model, and you have a mobile head, like a drill, and that kind of, it's like a little bit like archaeology. So you're looking for the actual model within the wood. So you kind of, and so you're, with every pass that you're milling, you're kind of getting closer to the original, or to the actual data, what you actually want to show. So these are the guys who helped me out with. That's Carl and Todd. Carl on the left. Yeah, look, that's your blue-collar dream right there. And they were so cool. This was where we went to lunch every day. Like in North Carolina, they're pretty big on barbecue and pulled pork. This is it's like you know, Schweinsbraten, but with a little, like, you chop it up and you add a little vinegar and some other stuff. It's very tasty. So this is kind of like, just to give you some context, you know, like this is what that looks like. These are the final sculptures at the museum being shown. So we made 2 of them. They were then auctioned off. So the full one, so you can see the kind of the height field. So you can see, so this is kind of like this is the bass, and these are the high tones. So you have this ambient hum you can see in there. And I'm gonna talk about now, this is like the last and final part of my talk. No, actually no, this is the second part, sorry. More images of money. Just because I like it so much. I'm gonna talk a little bit about like commission work. So people that came to me, that was kind of like, I would say it's an in between artwork and art direction and commercial work and advertising and these things. So it's kind of like, this is a frame from a music video that you can look up. I'm not going to show it, but you can have a look on my website or on my Vimeo or something. It's up there. This is for a Canadian musician called Egyptrix, who I've been collaborating with over the last few years, and kind of developing our own kind of visual language for his music together. Oh no, it's actually in there. How am I doing on time? So this is another some more commissioned work. This is a media facade. That's the Marriott in Los Angeles. So there's some of the software that I programmed running on that media facade. This is all like through a company that represents me in Los Angeles. This is a collaboration with an Italian fashion label. I didn't do the actual fashion. I just did they commissioned the motifs, like the prints. So they did some fabric prints with that, with my work. Some more of that. That came out recently, so I was very, very happy about how that turned out in the end, because it was, I really didn't know what they were going to do. So it's just like, I gave them, I programmed the software, I let it run, they picked a few of the images, and this is what they can actually come up with and how they used it. And I think it's really interesting how this flows, and this was that was also my idea, kind of to make it work with the fabric. Another commission. This is for a diesel store. This is like a 360-degree real-time installation that I did with a good friend of mine as a collaboration, yeah, for the diesel flagship store in Rome. Gonna show a few images. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna finish off my talk soon. It's Jackie Chan. Yeah, thank you.
Well done. Thanks so much, Andreas.